Thanks, Coach.
Welcome to the UCSC from our consistent speaker from Finland, where he is a national coach of Finland and also uh, a foreign coach of UAE before, given an award by the UCSSC as one of the top speaker of the year 2025. Let's give the floor to Coach Eetu Karvonen of Finland.
Today we'll actually talk about something that's very interesting to me, and I kind of remember with the fondness. So we are discussing about my greatest success of coaching Matti Mattson, a Finnish swimmer, to Olympic bronze in 2021 Tokyo. And we will go through some example practices, some progressions, but especially the ideology or the philosophy behind the training that he did. And if any of you have been present in my previous lectures, you can definitely see that this is quite different, because we are not talking about how to develop anybody. It's more of a how to take an elite athlete to an even higher level. So first of all, I think we need to set the stage a bit on the story of Matti. But yeah. So those were the goals again for this place. But I want to mention right up front that I don't want anybody to copy my program, because, like I will probably repeat multiple times during this lecture, is that I have never coached anyone else this way, and I probably never will, because Matti is a very unique individual. Of course, Olympic medal probably necessitates that you are different somehow. And again, I don't really think there's really anything magic about the program. It just allows a very motivated swimmer that's already on a high level to really get after it day after day after day. And the magic in the end is in Matti and not really me. But now, just to set the stage. So the story goes that Matti actually is probably the most talented swimmer of all time in Finland. And way before I started coaching him, he actually got a world championship bronze medal at age 19. So this was in 2013. And he was kind of known in Finland for his old school methods that I am also a proponent for age group swimmers as well. So very high volume, like 3,000 kilometers per year kind of training, but not really with any kind of planning, just hard work. And I was still kind of in the swimming game mainly in the US at the time, but I would hear all of these crazy sets that he was doing, 10 times 300 breaststroke and 4,000 meters of kicking and all of that. Unfortunately, what happened with him and what happens with a lot of talented swimmers is that they didn't change the program early enough, and they were basically hitting their head to the wall with his old coach for 3 years. And every year he just got worse and worse and worse. And then finally, after 2016, he was pretty much the only medal candidate. Well, not really a medal candidate, but he had that world championship medal from 2013. So the Finnish media hyped him up that he could maybe get a medal from Rio. He was 16th. He was publicly really humiliated by that. Really said that, okay, this guy can't take the pressure, the usual stuff that the media will say. And he made the decision that he can't no more continue with the previous coach, because obviously it wasn't working. And I was coaching in Dubai, like that is told at the time. And he gave me a call and asked me if I would move to Pori, Finland, which was quite a bigger change from being in the US and then in Dubai. But of course, I knew what kind of swimmer he was, and I thought this might be my only chance ever in my career to actually coach an Olympic gold medalist, and what a story it would actually make. So in early 2017, I moved back to Finland, which is my home country, in a new city, and Matti was actually in the army. So we really started our training in March 2017. And like I said before, he did absolutely no personal bests before or within the 3 years before I came as his coach. And luckily, after 3 months of training, we got our first personal best, which really wasn't at an elite level yet, but he swam 100 breaststroke in 101.12. And then follow that on the short course season with personal bests in both 100 and 200 breaststroke. At this moment, I was still kind of coaching quite traditionally. So using, I don't know if you know the parametric system, but the S3 system from the US, Sergey Belov, and they have a computer program that kind of gave me tight training sets and volume progressions on how to do that. We tapered quite a lot, trained 12 times a week, and all of that. But I would say the first change in my thinking came when he actually got married on 2017, and then in November 2017 he got his first child, a daughter named Varpu, and we kind of had to ease off the training for like uh, 6 or 7 weeks after her birth. And I had the habit already at that point to record all our training sets. And I was pretty amazed how much he actually improved within those 6 or 7 weeks. But unfortunately, I made the wrong interpretation of that. And I thought, okay, this was kind of a utilization, kind of a long taper. And that's why he was getting those good results in short course. And then in 2018, when he kind of came back to training, we went back to the old program and we got horrible uh, results throughout the whole spring. But I had these training records from 2017 when we were only training once per day. And then I just applied that after a very bad competition in Spain, where he swam 216 in 200 breaststroke, and I thought, okay, this is not working. We can't do it the way I think we should do it, and that's when we actually changed everything. We took all the volume, all the other strokes basically, then breaststroke out, started training once per day, doing pretty much only race pace, and we got immediate results. So after like 5 weeks of this kind of training, he dropped 6 seconds in his 200 breaststroke. So of course, the reason why he went to 16 was that he was probably overtraining and improved his 100 breaststroke PB again within that summer. And next fall, I really took a long time and took like analyzing and thinking of all the training we had done in the previous 1 year and a half, and kind of made the conclusion that maybe this volume approach and doing these different kind of phases of training is not really something that will take an adult athlete. He was already like 24, 25 years old at that point. And I could kind of pinpoint onto the sets that actually made him better. So luckily I had those numbers, so I could kind of discuss to Matti this my new ideology, what I was thinking we should really test out. And even though I really didn't have any proof or idea whether it would work, I kind of knew that we had no choice. So from that day on, from the fall 2018, and I will show you later what that means, we pretty much did the same uh, weekly plan every month, every year, again and again and again, only trying to improve certain race pace sets. And you can see right here, that's the basic framework. So on Mondays, we would train like the distance below for hundreds. And then Tuesdays and Fridays, we would train for the 200. And Saturdays, we would do broken swims or competitions or whatever. And it worked like a charm. So the biggest improvement we ever got, obviously, when you start something new, was 2018 fall, because he actually improved 2 seconds and a second in 100 on short course. So at that point, I thought, okay, we have really found our way, and I knew that we are going into the right direction. And we were just kind of going through with the same program until the March, and he qualified for the Olympics in the first competition that was possible. But then one morning, Matti actually noticed that he was losing his hair. So I don't know if you ever seen a picture of him, but he doesn't have any body hair. And next, what happened was that he was starting to get some gastrointestinal problems. So the food was not really digesting properly. And that really showed up in 2019 World Champs. And on top of that, during the flight, when we were flying to South Korea, he injured, well, probably he was already injured his back, but he had two slip discs in his back and he swam embarrassingly low, like 4 seconds slower than he did in mid-season. And then we obviously went to the doctors and tried to solve what was the problem. Why was he losing his hair? Why was the food not really keeping inside his body? And they actually diagnosed him with various autoimmune diseases, which were alopecia and celiac disease. So he needed to change his diet, also accept that he was going to be bald all his life. So that was probably the reason why the next fall was quite hard. It didn't go really the way we wanted, but he was still able to improve his short course results with 58.0 and 204.6. But unfortunately, because he swam so badly in 2019 summer, he was cut off from the federal program that was paying him salary. And also all of his sponsors went away. So we had to start to discuss whether he should go to work or can his wife's salary actually maintain his lifestyle where he can really push on the swimming. Well, the next setback was, of course, COVID, as it was probably for everybody. And we were actually doing a 4-week camp in Thailand in February and March of 2020. And we just got out of from Thailand to Finland in time. So we could actually still fly back from Asia. But as we get back to Finland, we noticed that all the pools were closed and there was not even a training place for Matti. The pools still had water, but we could not access the pools. And the only pool that we could find was actually in a local spa, and that was like a round 10-meter pool. So we trained in that for 3 months because we actually thought that Olympics were on and we had to get ready for that. But when the Olympics were canceled, we immediately started a vacation. And I wasn't really sure if Matti was ever going to come back from that vacation, but he took about 8 or maybe even like 10 weeks off. And I think this was probably the best thing that ever happened to him because he was so talented that he started going to European Champs every summer when he was like age 16. So this was his first vacation, like summer of free from swimming for 11 years. Also, this was vacation for me. So I really had the time to think and reflect. And I kind of sold this program to Matti saying that, okay, this is the program that we're going to do. Okay, we're either going to win Olympic gold medal or we're going to fail, but who cares? Everybody already thinks that you're has-been. You got the medal when you were 19 in 2013. That was 8 years ago. So nobody is really expecting anybody from you. And what we did was that we dropped the volume even more. So we only trained through Monday through Friday. 100%, I would say, especially during the fall, was race pace. All the aerobic work, all the auxiliary work was done on dry land. And that's pretty much what we did the whole year. And you will see on the next slide that the improvements were quite amazing. So, of course, there was no competition in 2020 in Finland either. But then as we reached 2021, that became our best year ever. So first in February, And was also the founding ideology of this program, was that you need to get better constantly. No tapering for any competition, not even Olympics, just like a small peaking phase where you try to get a bit faster. But we were still hitting this type of program in the Olympic Village. But anyways, we started our competitive season from February. Immediately, national record in 100 breaststroke, 0058. Then in 2 months, we had another competition where he finally broke his 200 breaststroke national record PB from 8 years ago with 208.51, and also another PB on the 100 breaststroke 0046. And like 3 weeks later, he further dropped the 100 breaststroke, first to 0008 and then 59.99 in the semifinals of Europeans. And in the heats of Europeans, 208.43. In the semifinals, 208.26. And in the final, he wasn't quite breaking his PB, but still faster than he had ever done prior to this season. And as we went to Olympics, he didn't break his personal best in the 100 breaststroke, but you can see that in that 59.99, he took 17 and 21 strokes for the lengths. And in Olympic heats, he actually took 14 and 16 strokes. So his efficiency was majorly improved. Then in the heats, not the personal best, but almost. In the semifinal, 208.22. And then in the final, 207.13 with a bronze medal. And in my mind, had he started a little bit easier, he at least would have got a silver. Possibly could have won that, but it was an Olympic final, so he couldn't really contain his excitement of the race. So the first 50 was way, way too fast. So that was kind of the background on the story on Matti. And here were the founding principles when we were getting ready during that year. So the idea, and again, this will come more clear as we go through, was to shift certain velocities, so his race pace velocity, toward aerobic metabolism. So meaning that if you can at first swim 650s at a certain pace, our only goal in training was to extend that ability so he could swim 2050s, 3050s. And for me, the hierarchy of qualities that we needed to improve on him was psychology. So we were basically talking about the Olympics, the racing, the tactics, the way he should breathe, the way he should think every day in the pool. The next was skills. Of course, he was already very skillful, but if we couldn't hit the tempos, the stroke lengths that we desired, we would just not really train on that day. So that came first, even before the pace or the hardness of the set. And of course, physiology was somewhat important, but really, if he was not mentally there, he was not motivated, he was not able to swim the way that we wanted, it didn't matter what the set physiology was. A second founding principle was just improving his 100. So raising his velocity ceiling. And again, this needed to be done with the competitive technique. So because he doesn't swim the 50 and the 100 is a very afterthought, we wanted to learn how to swim faster, but with the 200 kind of type stroke rate. And with Matti, this is always, of course, the limiting factor because his 100 is way worse than his 200. And within this framework, I wanted to guarantee that he would actually improve, to make it as transparent as possible. So he would know every day whether he improved or not. But of course, at the same time, this kind of program was kind of boring because we were repeating the same thing every day. But at the same time, he knew that, okay, this is what I need to do to improve. And of course, the improvement just at this level means that you swim faster at a competition. Next, yeah. And the season structure was very, very simple. So from day one, we started this cycle of race pace. because in my mind, there's no reason for a very seasoned athlete who's been training for 20 years to do any aerobic work because it's already developed. And as the set volumes increased, then again, there was this shift in the energy systems because obviously, if you start from 650s and you end up with 2050s, it's not the same energy system. And that was the simple periodization because you vary the distances according how the swimmer is actually improving. That becomes like an auto-regulated periodization, meaning that it just kind of lives how depending on how the athlete is actually adapting. Okay, any other training that we did was just to support to make him better at the sets that we wanted to develop. So if there was a plateau, and I will show you later in the 2021 spring, we had some plateaus, then we introduced like phases of training where we try to solve that. So that might be kicking, that might be pulling, that might be speed training or something like that. Uh, but only for like 3 or 4 weeks. And it wasn't done in an effort to make his kick better. It was done in an effort to make those sets again go forward. And then before the bigger competitions, basically only Olympics, we did like a 3 or 4 week uh, uh, peaking phase where we gave more rest and just tried to swim still the same sets, but without the volume increases, just faster. And this kind of explains the energy system shifts. And again, it's not my idea, but it works something like this. So if I start out by being able to swim, let's say 650s at my 200 pace, let's say it's 33.0, and then I work, and this is a maximal set. You can't do more. You're completely fatigued after this set. Then it would be classically classified as speed or maximal endurance. So you had high lactate, high fatigue. It's very, very hard for you. Well, as you work through the system, you can get to 1650s. Okay, again, this is maximal set, but it's no longer, the pace is no longer speed endurance or maximal endurance you. It becomes something like threshold. And if you further push the repetitions or the volume up and you're able to hold the same pace for 3050s, then in my mind, the pace has become so easy that it's actually aerobic training now. So it's kind of like a reverse periodization. You start from the speed side and then you add volume, so it becomes more and more endurance dominant. And then you just do that again and again and again throughout the season. And how many times you run through it, it's just dependable on how the athlete adapts. So the idea is that you always just figure out how can he get more repetitions in, whether that's using rounds or uh, adding some auxiliary work into the practice. But the main goal is always, okay, I need more repetitions at, let's say, 32 fives. And then once you hit 30 50s at that pace, then I need 31 fives or 32 zeros. And you just go along with that idea throughout the whole 45 weeks or something that we were preparing for Olympics. And this is very different. So again, for those who have been present in my other lectures, and I'm talking about building the base and just having these different kind of phases during the season, I'm always talking about athletes who are still developing physiologically. So their fitness is developing. And I think then just the classical speed through endurance model works just fine, and it's much, much easier to manage. So first you do some volume training and then you intensify within the season, you taper, and the swimmers will swim fast. But once that stops working, and in my experience, especially with Matti, it just stops working. You basically do the volume training and nothing works. The swimmer is just getting slower, and then you get the same results every year after the taper. And that's why I changed more into this idea of endurance through the speed. Of course, it probably won't work for all the athletes, but it worked great for Matti. And the whole idea is that you're improving all the time. And I highly doubt, I have very limited data on this from real science, of course, data with Matti, that their fitness qualities, their max VO2 or their mitochondrial, that stuff probably doesn't improve. But what improves is their neurological capability of sustaining that speed that is needed in the competition. And that's the best way I can explain it. They know exactly what is required from them at the race because they've done it for 40 weeks in a straight. There's no question whether you can swim at the speed uh, that is required because you've already done that 100 times within the season. Yeah, and again, the sets are quite simple. So for the speed development, we have 25s from the start, unlimited rest, makes sense. You become faster if that improves. Then we have 25s with a very long rest interval. For me, this is the basic speed development set. And again, if you're swimming or getting ready for a 200, you should do those with the 200 technique. So they're not like maximal sprinting, they're more for the skill of learning how to swim fast within your stroke, especially in breaststroke and fly. Then for the 100, we have different kind of 25s. And in 2021, we were really only doing 25s. So 25s with a work rest ratio of 1 to 2 or to 3. And in my mind, that develops the first 50 and it correlates quite nicely. So you just double double the time that you can do repetitions, and most likely at the competition, that's the velocity that you can do. Then you have for the second 50, 25s on a shorter rest interval, so 1 to 1 work rest ratio, and that's for the second 50. Well, after 2021, I've kind of removed all these 25s. I think they're kind of useless, and now I actually do just 50s on like 1 to 4 work rest ratio. So if you swim in 30 seconds, then you rest for a couple minutes, and this seems to correlate even better and improve even better than using the 25s. But at the time, we were using 25s. And then for the 200, very simple. You do 50s with one-on-one work rest ratio. And for me, this is kind of developing the middle 100, the second and the third 50. And then as you push the rest interval even lower, so you're resting less than you're working, then this starts to improve, especially the third 50 and somewhat the fourth 50. But for the fourth 50, I think you need to do 75s and 100s. And this is something we really didn't do in the year of Tokyo, other than just before the competition. And now I think we should have done it maybe once every 3 weeks or 2 weeks to improve that last 50. And again, this is extremely simple, but in my experience again with the adults, the more simple you can make it, the more motivated the athletes are because they can see their improvement constantly, and the better results you will get. And then we can actually start seeing the practices. And I have marked down our warm ups and stuff, but the reality with Matti, and again, at the time he was 27 years old, he could do whatever warm up he wanted. So usually I had the group, I put the group warm up, but I would say 95% of the time, Matti did something that he wanted. So we filmed his swimming every 2 weeks, early season every week, and then late season maybe every month. And he knew exactly the technical skills that he needed to work. And he was just developing those skills on their own before the first set that we tried to develop. Then we had a mid practice cool down, and that could be again whatever. Sometimes he went to the shower, sometimes he walked across the pool, sometimes he would just talk to me, and then we would do another set. And then sometimes we would have another mid practice kind of cool down for 10 minutes, and then we would do a third really, really hot set. And no warm downs. We would usually end our practices going together in the sauna, which is the cultural thing in Finland. So the skill training, like I said, was basically done by Matti. So I filmed, I analyzed, I told him these are the things within this month or in the next weeks, 2 weeks, that I want you to pay attention. And then in every practice, it was not only the set structure, it was the skills involved in making him faster. So if I could see some inefficiency in his pull, then we would just focus on that in every practice for the next 2 weeks, or until we saw that it actually got somewhat better. And then I believe in the next slide, I finally go in the real practices. And now it's not uploading. Can you guys see it? No?
So our
Oh,
setup, yeah, it's showing
there we
training
go.
fall 2020 fall.
Yes, training 2020 fall. So here was the basic setup. That was the microcycle. So on Mondays, we would do a speed set to start out with. And it was always, 6 to 10 repetitions of basically 25s from dive, from turns. Sometimes I would pull like extra speed on him. And after that, 10 minutes of easy. Then we would do 100 pace, kind of a lactic set, meaning that kind of speed development set with long rest intervals. And then another set similar to that, usually in freestyle. On Tuesday was our 200 pace development set. We would do a set for the breaststroke with short rest, and there was a progression. I would constantly try to make it harder by either adding volume or asking more speed, or cutting down the rest interval, and you will see. You will soon see how. And then another set for freestyle. If there was a need to do some other work, that would be the day when we did that. On Wednesdays, that was our recovery day. So we would usually work on pull-outs, starts, turns, and then do like really, really low volume, 1K, 2K, easy on other strokes. Thursday was our 100 pace, kind of a lactic set. So we would do 25s with short rest intervals, and then at some points do 50s with a little bit long rest interval. And then we would do another similar set for freestyle. And then for Friday, we would always end up the week with a 200 pace set of 50s and some other work sometimes. And earlier I mentioned that we did a lot of dry land because my idea was that all the kind of basic endurance work was to be done on dry land. And this is what it meant. On Mondays and Thursdays, when we had more of a speed emphasis day, we would do gym work and nothing special. We have a very old school gym at the swimming pool, so squats, benches, pull-ups, never more than 6 repetitions. So always just maximal basic strength, no muscle mass developing, anything like that. And then on Tuesdays and Fridays, we would do like a 30 to 45-minute just classical circuit training. And there was also a progression of that, starting the season doing 30-second work, 30-second off, and then going 45 seconds work, 15 seconds off. And then as his fitness improved, we would just go basically 30 minutes without rest, all kind of different exercises. And the way I usually constructed that was I would make one practice of different movements, and then we would repeat it 4 or 5 times, and then I would do another set of movements. And so we made sure that his body was developed from every possible angle there was. Now, on top of that, Matti is an avid biker, so he likes mountain biking, he likes cross-country skiing. So on weekends, he would usually do at least 1 hour of those activities. But sometimes it might be like 4 hours of cross-country skiing in the forest at the very, 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 very low level. So that was basically the aerobic training that he was doing during the whole 4 years that we were going towards the Olympics. And here's the progression model. So the very first practice of the season, and I mean the very first practice, after 8 weeks of resting, he came back on Monday, on Monday, we would do 625s on a minute. I would get an average time from that, and then we would just start to develop that. Now, in case of this kind of long rest interval 25s, our only goal was to get faster throughout the year. And of course, that stopped working after 3 or 4 months, so he didn't get any faster in the spring. but we would get all the speed gains that were possible. Then on Thursday, on the first week, we would do 1225s on 45, get an average, and then we start developing that. And then on Tuesday of that first week, we would do 650s, just all out on a minute, and we would get averages, the stroke counts, everything. And at the time, we didn't have money for heart rate monitors or lactates or anything like that. Now we also would take those because I have access to this kind of sports science stuff. And then, yeah, and then we defined the goals for these sets. So for the 100 paces, again, just get strong. So for the long rest interval 25s, just get faster. For the short rest, we said, okay, if we can do 40 25s on 35, so with about 20 seconds of rest, then that's enough. And then we would go back in our periodization, go back to in the repetitions and start building again, but with faster velocity. With 200s, we made a number of 30 50s on 55. Okay, if you can do that, then for sure this speed is too easy for you. We need to go back in the reps and start the process again. And then we just kind of created week by week the progression from that to get there. So if on the first week we did 650s, next time we did the same session, it might be 1050s. 3 days after that, it might be 2 times 650s. And 3 days after that, it might be 2 times 850s or whatever until we hit that 30. Okay? And really, the progression just takes the time as it takes. And of course, this year was kind of special because everything was just working just the way I planned. So he was able to go through that cycle very, very fast. And here's kind of an example. So this would be like mid-September in 2020. You can see here in the practices, I have defined the technical things. So arm leverage in the front, keeping the arms as long as possible before he starts to catch, and then getting the legs behind his body when he hits that line in the front. You can see all the warm-ups are pretty much the same, couple hundred easy, and then Matti would work on his skills. On day one, 625s from starts. Okay, 6-stroke max, because again, we didn't want him to go faster by just tempoing up. Okay, 10-minute break, 1225s on one. We got an average 14.8 with 6 cycles per 25, 10-minute break, same set for freestyle. That was just done for kind of fitness, kind of extra stuff. On Tuesday, we'd come to the pool and do 2 times 1050s breaststroke on 120, averaging 33.6, doing 5 cycles going that way in the pool and then 6 cycles coming back. And these are all short course pool, by the way, all of these. We rarely have access to long course pool, so we're training on short course. Wednesday, super easy day, just filming, technique, some pull-outs, and then some easy aerobic work. And Matti could really himself decide what he wanted to do. Did he want to do some pulling or some kicking or backstroke, whatever? It didn't matter because the only idea was to recover. And then on Thursday, we would come and do the short rest, 100 pace stuff. And on this particular week, it was 2 times, 12 times, 25 breaststroke on 45, averaging 15.0s, 500 easy between the rounds. So I hope you can see that the progression model is that I'm trying to figure out how can I get more volume by dividing the absolute volume into these rounds, and then I just manipulate the round numbers. But my goal is to get to that straight set of 40 25s or 30 50s. And it usually took like 4 or 5 weeks to get there. And then after 10-minute break, similar set for freestyle, 16 25s on 35, averaging 39. Friday, the last day of the training week, we'd come, do the normal warm-up, and 2 times 12 times 50 at 130. So again, this is a little bit longer rest interval, but for some reason at this week, I thought, okay, we need a little bit more rest. So we are stabilizing that he can hold 33.0s, holding that 11 strokes or 5 strokes on the first 25s, and 6 cycles coming back for the whole duration of the set. And then like 15 minutes, 1,000 easy of choice between the rounds, and then finishing it off with some auxiliary work. So 5 times 200 breaststroke kicking. But that's just kind of easy, just focusing on the technical things that we saw that was necessary. Well, 2 months later, you can see that the week is exactly the same. But on the first practice, you can see that we have progressed into 425s, and then we're doing some turns as well. But while we were hitting, I think, 14.5s here, then 2 months later, he's doing the same exact set, but with 13.6s. He's also improved in freestyle. But especially this 50 stuff, you saw that the last set on September was 2 times 12 times 50 on 130 into 33.0. And we just continued the progression. And 2 months later, he's doing 2 times 950s on 55, hitting 31.7s. So that is massive improvement. So I can be quite guaranteed that when he goes to a race, he's going to be swim faster than in September. And of course, we hopefully remember that he took the whole July and almost the whole August and some of the June off from swimming. So that's why he was kind of sucky at the beginning. Then Wednesdays, we kind of stopped doing any of the technical stuff because he needed to rest after hard 2 days. So it was just like 2.5K of easy swimming, doing different strokes, no breaststroke at all. On Thursday, we have progressed. Last time it was, I think it was 2 times 12 25s on 45, hitting 15.0s. Now he's progressed to 30 25s on 35, averaging 14.1s. And then we also have improved tremendously in the freestyle, and we already hitting that 40 25s with almost exactly one to one work to rest ratio. So full set. And we didn't really care about the freestyle. It was just kind of like something extra, but we had the same progressions on freestyle as well. And then you can see the exact same 2 times 12 50s. He is holding 1.2 seconds faster than 2 months earlier with 35 seconds less rest. So he has improved a lot. And if you get this whole lecture, you can actually see all the sets that we did. We started in August. Then you have all the sets from September, all the sets from October, all the sets from November, all the sets from December. And you can see how he's improving and how I'm progressing. But there's really not much to learn as long as you learn the principle of, okay, I'm trying to push the volume up. When I see that this is enough volume, then I bring the volume down, but demand faster paces. And that's the whole gist of the training. As we approach spring of 2021, we changed slightly. So like I told, I noticed that the speed development has plateaued. And I thought, okay, 200 breaststroke long course, I think we are fast enough. Or his 25 is fast enough. So I actually added a second 100 pace set. And usually on Mondays, we actually did 3 sets for 100 pace development. So at the same time, I know it will be quite work capacity or endurance training as well, because there might be 125s swam basically as fast as you can. On Tuesdays, we were still doing 200 pace sets with short rests, but we also added some 75s. So the whole fall and the last 3 years before this, we were basically doing only 50s. But now I added some 75s because I thought he needs to experience how does it feel to turn to the 75 mark in his race. On Wednesdays, like I said, very easy, nothing special. Then on Thursdays, a little bit less of the 100 pace, but still 2 sets for breaststroke and freestyle. And then on Fridays, you can see how this is periodized. On Tuesday, this is a little bit easier. And on Friday, we added a freestyle set for the 200 pace development. So we got 2 of those really, really, really hard sets per week. The dry land, exactly the same. At some point around May, we also dropped this Friday and Tuesday work because I thought the guy was probably fit enough to get even more recovery, so we could progress faster in these race-based sets. And here's an example from auxiliary training. So this is just the ideology. So you've got the base of training is the race-based sets, but if you feel that there is a plateau and you can kind of figure out why that is, then the solution is to create as short of a block of training where you're really paying attention to that weakness. So, for example, if he feels that his arms are giving out during the race-based sets, then we can build in pulling. Let's say you put the drag socks into your hands and combine that to the race-based sets. So you're demanding even more from the arms for a little while. Well, alternatively, you can just kind of program this kind of, let's say, isolated work blocks where you slightly remove the race-based sets and work on whatever the weakness is. So if the weakness is kick, you can do a 3-week kicking cycle, which we had to do during the spring, where basically every day we just worked on kicking because we felt, or Matti felt, that his legs were failing him in the race-based sets and also in his races. So then we addressed that. So again, this is not a religion. You have to be, or I had to be aware of what was actually happening and try to solve any of the problems that might come up from doing basically the same stuff all the time. But now you can see that the practices from the spring of 2021, and these are quite insane as a pace. He's never been able to reproduce these since. So on Mondays, you can see that we're doing 4 rounds of 825s on 35, but now we're averaging 13.7 for all of these, which is very, very, very fast. After 10-minute break, we're hitting 2025s fly. 10-minute break, we're hitting 2025s freestyle. So again, this is 72 25s in very fast in one practice. On Tuesdays, this seems to be one of those places where we're doing auxiliary training. So we're doing 4 rounds of 400 breaststroke kicking, and we had access to long course pool. Actually, we were in Thailand again. So we were doing 400 kick on long course and then hitting 850 short course on a minute, again, averaging 31.60s, which were pretty much the same as we could do during the fall. But because we're adding the kicking in, it is just, we have to accept that these won't go as fast as they are done when they're done alone in a set. On Thursday, we're just basically repeating this set, and we have improved, and we are going past the 13.4. And instead of 2 sets and doing fly, we're just hitting 40-25s freestyle on 30. And as you can see, this is way faster than he was able to do during the fall. Then on Friday, the kicking continues. We're adding kicking onto this set, and now we're actually doing the 50s even on long course. I think we were averaging 32 lows on long course, which already is like not world record pace, but let's say Olympic final pace for the 200. And then after 10-minute break, we would hit 1250s freestyle, and 10-minute break, we would do 1850s breaststroke pull with fins. So this would be the auxiliary work at the end of the week. And since we have 2 days to recover after that, we can do a little bit more. And then this is kind of the peaking phase. So 1 month, about 1 month out of the Olympics, you can see that instead of having 4 days where we're trying to hit it, we're only having 3 days. The first day, we're doing 1825s on 30, and he's averaging 13.2, which is massive. He started the season from doing over 15s. And then after a very long break, we're doing what I call race rehearsals. And this set would then develop on to 450s and 100s and so forth. But we started with two rounds of 825s, just basically going through whatever is going to happen in the race. So everything exactly like it's done in the race. Tuesday, just easy. On Wednesday, we're doing those hundreds. and this was his best set before the Olympics. So 3 100s on 2 minutes, so about 55 seconds of rest. He was averaging 105.2. And at the time, I thought, okay, if he can hit that on his second 100, he'll break the world record because it might be possible. On Thursday, easy. On Friday, we're just doing 13 50s on one. And this is actually a long course, averaging 31 twos, which again, on long course is world level with such a short rest interval. And this is kind of data, all that correlates to competition. So again, every day was about the race. And I think, again, the psychology was the most important. I needed to motivate Matti to be at the absolute highest level he can every day when we actually practiced. And here you can kind of see the correlations. So the first 50, it not directly correlate, but you can definitely tell that as the years went by, you can see the other years when he wasn't that successful, I can see that he couldn't hit the actual times that he was able to do in 2021. In 2024, he was actually able to surpass that, but unfortunately, he was sick at the Olympics, so we never saw what he could have actually done. But it almost lined up perfectly. So those 3 100s, he won 105.2 was the average time for that. And his second 100 at the Olympics was 106.2. But I believe this first 50 of 28.96 was way too fast for him at the time, and it doesn't correlate exactly with these times that we have here. So had he started a little bit easier, I think he could have hit this in 105 low, which basically would have mean at least a silver medal. But we will take the Olympic bronze medal as well. And I think this kind of correlation is something that all adult coaches should do because, of course, whatever the philosophy of training, you need to have a way to see that what you're training is actually making you better at the competitions. And for me, this is the main thing. And here's just kind of a practical takeaways you can do that, okay, you need to improve. You don't want to be stupid. So if something isn't working, then obviously change the course. And very often just resting for a couple of days, like in Matti's case, taking the Saturday and Sunday off. I think this was the key for his improvement because he's a big guy. He weighs almost 100 kilos and he's 2 meters tall. So he needs more recovery than, let's say, more normal size human beings. Okay? You need to stop. So the practical takeaways really for me is that if you're going to test out this kind of training, you need to stop the training if the athlete cannot maintain the desired speed and especially on breaststroke, the desired technique. So basically the stroke count that we have defined for the set or for the speed. Because if you are looking at it from the perspective of hard training, you're doing it wrongly. You're training and loading the technique and all the skills required in the race and not really the training hard comes from holding your technique exactly as you want it at the race. Okay, before every practice, you have to ask yourself and the athlete or use some recovery tool to see if the athlete is ready to perform better than last time. And that should be the expectation. Of course, sometimes it won't happen. When it's a good season, it happens all the time. And when it's a bad season, unfortunately, you kind of know that this is not going the way you want because the athlete is not able to adapt at the rate that you have kind of set out. Yeah, and only do good practices. And I think this kind of sums everything up. So the idea is to get better all the time, and the way to do that is just to beat the performance that you've done before. And when you are doing it this way, the individualization and creating the microcycle, the week, and the mesocycles are quite easy as long as you believe the data that you're collecting. So there's no idea of doing this kind of hard training if the athlete is constantly getting worse. So he needs to actually get better all the time. And then once you figure out how you can make the athlete better, or in my case, how the Matti got better, then it felt easy at the time because I had the recipe for at least that 1 year of how to actually develop. Well, then the questions, okay, what would I do differently? And Matti is still swimming. He took 1 year off and now he's back, but he's 32 or man, yeah, 32 years old now. So I don't know if we can still improve, but I would definitely add more rest. So I'm not sure if we got any worse results if we had taken, let's say, one more day out of the week and just do easy practices. Because right now we were pushing it super, super hard 4 times a week. And I think 3 times or even 2 times per week might be enough. Of course, you need to train on the other days, but those can be more for recovery and aerobic development or maintenance in the case of a 30-year-old athlete. I wouldn't use the round system anymore, and especially the 25s, because the problem is that the type of swimmer like Matti, who has a very, very high work capacity, when he's doing this 500 easy, he could basically continue forever. He could do those 25s for the whole day when he's in shape, and that's not the idea. The idea is to actually challenge the swimmer. So I think from now on, I will with Matti, I will just use straight sets and see how that goes. Also, the goal numbers were way too high. I don't think you need to do 40 25s or 30 50s. Much less would work. And like I said before, I think the 25s were kind of unnecessary. So I'm using 50s almost exclusively now. And then it also kind of begs the question, because it all looks so great, because it was successful, but why isn't anyone else training this way? And I have some other adult swimmers in my program, and they are not doing this because I think this is very risky. Because if you push too hard and you don't read the numbers correctly, listen to the athlete, you plateau very, very easily. So you have to believe the process. You first of all, of course, have to believe into this program for it to work, and then you need to do it correctly. And correctly means that when you are not able to push yourself better than you did last time, then you just shouldn't do it, and you should rest and swim easily. Okay. One of the things for swimmers is very hard is that the volume is so low. So on some days we would swim less than 2,000 meters. So when they come from a culture where you're swimming 15K a day, 16K a day, like my swimmers do when they're age groupers, then it's really hard to kind of shift the mindset to this kind of training. Again, it probably doesn't improve any physiological qualities maximally. So I think you need this kind of base. I don't think it would have worked when Matti was 18, but because he had already done all the freaking training in the world when I got to coach him, I think this was almost the only option that he had left for improvement. So in like sport physiology language, this would be utilization training, trying to get everything out of the system that's been built in it over the years. However, something that was very interesting is that we ran this like almost exactly the same as I showed you for 3 years straight. So for like 120 weeks straight, and he just kept improving month after month after month. And of course, we continued with the same stuff for a couple more years, and it didn't work. So maybe from that we could take that it works for 3 years, but not for 5. Although there are some confounding factors there, of course. So now I'll go to the chat and see if there's any questions. And of course, you can ask questions verbally if you would like to.
Say the chat has been empty. Nothing
Yeah,
speaking up, but I've got a lot of cards on my to ask you some follow-ups, if that's okay.
Please.
I wonder if Lily King, our famous woman breaststroker here in Indiana, watches this video. She'll come and get a passport and visit you in Finland and come back and have another life. No, but give us the impression with how is he doing now? What's his life story more on the swimmer or the person. I would love to hear about
About
your trip to the Olympics. Interacting with the media say. Did I imagine his wife couldn't go to the Olympics because of the pandemic and such? So give me a little more personal background on the gentleman that you've been coaching.
Yeah. So something I didn't mention is that during the Olympic year in 2021, he actually got his second child, a son named Arni. So of course, because the Olympics were supposed to be in 2020, and he was supposed to stop his career there, so they made arrangement with his wife to get the child after the Olympics, and he came up during the preparation. So he had actually two children, and the wife he had to left at home for like 6 or 7 weeks that we were away, because we went to Japan almost 2 months before the Olympics, just to make sure that we don't get COVID just before the Olympics. And of course, the media was quite positive. During the Tokyo Olympics, Finland got two medals. One medal from female boxing, and then Matti's medal from swimming. So he became a star. So I think this is the real reason why wasn't successful in 2022 and 23. There was just so much more sponsorship and TV and all of this kind of stuff that was really taking away from his preparation. Uh, and I think the story was quite unique because he was like the swimmer, the up and coming swimmer in 2013 when he got that bronze medal at the World Champs. And then, of course, when he didn't develop, he actually regressed for the next 3 years and then couldn't get to the level that he was at 19 for 8 years. And then all of a sudden, we can see that he starts dropping the time all the time, and it all ends up with the Olympic bronze medal. This was a quite big of a story. So yeah, he after that he could, well, not retire, but the money that he made, the sponsorship he made, basically changed his life. Unfortunately, it didn't change my life, but it changed his life. And then after 2023, we had this discussion that, okay, man, you need to make a choice. Do you want to win at Paris, or do you want to be this media star Matti Mattson, who has a bronze medal? And luckily, he made the decision that he wants to go all in. Now we actually had some sports science, so I could, at least I thought I was doing even better practices. We had lactate meters, so we could really individualize the program to do exactly what he needed, at least according to the information that I have. And he was in better shape before Paris Olympics. But then, unfortunately, 2 days before the 200 breaststroke heats, he wake up with a fever, and he had COVID quite badly. And the idiot he still swam in the morning, which was not a great idea, very unethical, and that became also a media thing in Finnish newspapers, because he really shouldn't do that, but he did. So that was a failure. But yeah, and now he actually got his third kid in May of this year, again after the Olympics. So now he has three kids, a wife, probably a massive loan for his house, and but he's training again. We're still doing the same. So 5 times a week, he comes in the mornings. He built a gym at his house. So now he's no longer doing the gym at the pool, so he can actually access it whenever he has the time during the day and do a little bit more, or do a gym that's not restricted by the machinery that we have at the pool. So I don't know if that's a good story there, but he's a different man because he was so talented in swimming. He actually stopped school at age 18, so he doesn't have any kind of education. He's never worked a day in his life other than swimming, and he's already 32 years old. And I still think that he can improve, but it's all, of course, dependable on how he's able to align his life towards the goal of actually swimming faster.
So, looking forward, what are the next big milestones and hurdles on his schedule into 2026 and beyond?
Well, the hurdles will come. I'm sure there's going to be some setbacks, injuries, and such. But of course, 2026 Paris European Champs. That's where we're preparing right now. I am trying some different stuff because now there's more technology. We're using form goggles. We're using lactate in every practice, just getting data on how his body is responding to the training. And what I said in the last slide of what I would change, those are pretty much the things that I've changed. So we're only doing straight race-based sets now, and then the lactate and the form goggles tell us that, okay, today we're going to stop here, and next time we want to improve these measures within the swimming. Of course, still with the technique, the tactique, and all of that, but that's like a new layer of precision in the training. And since he has the funds now, I can have another person at the pool who can take care of all the data analysis and all of that stuff. So I think it's really, really helpful. But yeah, so that's the next goal. But I'm pretty sure if Paris 2026 Europeans are not successful, and I think by success, if he can get under 209, that would be like a successful season for him, because of course he took like 50 weeks off after the Olympics. So that's quite of a rebuilding from now. But luckily he likes that biking and he likes that cross country skiing, so he wasn't totally inactive, and he's not fat or anything like that. So now he's just got back into that training. And one of the things that I do observe, and again, this is more strength to my hypothesis, that these adult athletes who already have the aerobic base, have been training for decades, is that it literally took us maybe 2 weeks of this kind of practice, and he's already almost in the same level from where he started in 2021. Like there's no need to rebuild for 2 months or anything. If you just start with the practice, the body remembers all of the adaptation that it has hold, and then you can just kind of continue almost immediately. So in retrospective from this, and had I known how successful media person he became in Finland, because I didn't, of course, prepare in any way him to get a medal at the Olympics or what happens after that, I would have suggested him to take the next year completely off. I think this would have been a pretty good decision. So that's why after the Paris, we already decided way before whether he will be successful or not. You take the next year off. I don't want to see you at the pool, because you need to take care of yourself and live life as an adult with your family, and then you can make the decision if you want to come back or not. And he likes it. So and I think one of the reasons why this kind of practice works with him so well is that it's like a game for him. Like last lecture I talked about having fun in the practice. Somehow this is really, really fun for him to see the numbers from the last time, also now seeing the lactate numbers. And I think there's something magical about having this objective feedback and then trying to, let's say, calm your heart rate down as fast as possible, because it's not only physiological skill, it's also psychological skill. How can you stay calm and collected at the early parts of the sets and all of that stuff? And I think that's like the hidden performance enhancement thing that many swimmers are not doing. And it's funny you mentioned Lily King. I don't really know about Lily King. I kind of know how they're training because I have had friends in Indiana who swam there. And for me, one of the biggest mistake that coaches do, and I have done, is that once the adults become, or the swimmers become adults, you don't change the training. You just add more volume. They're training more, but the addition doesn't guarantee you that the things that you want to improve actually improves. So I'm not sure if this is an optimal way to do it, but at least I think there needs to be like a direct change at some point. And usually for me, at least in my program here in Pori, if I can see that an athlete is plateauing for half a year when they're, let's say, 17 or 18 years old, a female, for example, then I will change it to more into this direction. And so far, it always works. Unfortunately, in Finland, usually when they're 19 or 20, they go to university somewhere else. So I don't get to see how long I can actually improve them. But it does work for other athletes as well, especially when they come from a program where they have done this basic kind of stuff at first, and then you do this like a really swift change where you just remove the volume, put the intensity on, and they improve a lot. Yeah.
Could you tell us about the form goggles and your tech toys? Those are the goggles from Finnish that have you can see the pace of the clock in them, and
Yeah.
it sounds like those numbers are a gamification. It's a fun thing for him to do. So tell us about your new toys.
Yeah. Well, the form goggles, we've been using them for a couple of years now. So it just allows you to, first of all, see your heart rate all the time. And I think this is one of those things where it adds another layer. You can say that, okay, last time you had 175 heartbeat after 10th repetition of this set or something. Okay. Next time we might not improve, but we can see that, okay, heart rate actually went down to 159. Okay, last time when we did 1650s, your lactate was 12.3 after the set. Now it's actually 9.5 or something like this. So I'm not sure it matters what your lactate is or what your heart rate is, but it adds another layer to the analysis and like reinforcement that good things are happening. So the swimmer is like, okay, the objective numbers of speed or my ability to sustain my technique didn't improve, but I took a small step forward. And then also, since we are training on short course, he can always see the stroke number after every 25. So it gives him like an immediate feedback. How did this go? And then, of course, it really helped my data collection. So I used to just write everything down on a notebook because I'm at the swimming pool, and now everything just hits my phone. It's all here. I can get the Excel file, make comparisons, and see what's happening in those sets. And also, the lactate really helps because, and this goes a little bit on a tangent, but when you're hitting those 50s, you can actually see how this shifts in energy system goes. Because when you start out, the first couple of weeks of the year, your lactate will hit like 14 millimoles and you're just dying. And then week after week, you can see it going down. And at the moment when you can hit, let's say 2050s, your lactate won't go over 4. So at least according to the textbooks, this is threshold training, even though the intensity and the effort is almost maximal, but something happens in the body uh, when you're holding that same velocity that it just becomes more economical, and you can show it within the numbers. But I have used this for other swimmers too, and I have one particular swimmer who's swimming a 50 fly. This does not happen to him. It seems that his lactate just goes goes higher and higher after every week. So I haven't been as successful with him but I will figure it out. So this is again the individuality. You have to you have to trust the numbers, because for me that's almost all you have. Of course, the swimmer can tell you that I feel great and all of that, and then you go to a competition and you cry because the result is bad. But my whole thinking goes from like, you have to know when you go to the competition, okay, this is going to be my performance. But unfortunately, of course, you also know when the performance is not there, and then it's kind of uneasy because both you and the swimmer know that, yeah, this is not going to go well, and that might be a bad thing because it's self prophecy. So you're prophesying yourself that it's not going well based on the numbers. So I would say that's the drawback also of the system.
Can you tell us a little bit about the prior coach? Is that person still in the area or in coaching? Just and what do some of the other coaches think or do around you? We're all a coaching community.
Yeah, well, of course, in Finland, and I was the head coach of Finland until last January, and probably because of Matti's success, he became the head coach. So that's how my life changed a bit. But so most of the coaches in Finland, like most of my swimmers, we are training high school athletes. So I don't think there's much to draw other than the incessant focus on technique and numbers and progression and all of that. But I wouldn't train a 16-year-old kid, especially male like this, at that time when they are still developing. And that's what most Finnish coaches are obviously doing. Nobody does it the same way as I do. And when Matti wasn't this successful, then of course everybody told me that I am stupid and I'm gonna ruin him and all of that stuff. But it didn't matter to me because I already ruined him. I couldn't get him to that next level with the tools that I had at the time. So I needed to do something else. And on some of the slides, it's like I discussed this with Matti openly. Like, I don't know how this is going to go. You're either going to win or who cares? If we're 10th in the Olympics, that's a good result. But that's not what we want. We want to win. Yeah, so that's uh, the attitude towards at the time. And then of course you are an American coach, so and I am aware that Matti is a special case. Of course he is. He swims 207 in 200 breaststroke, so that's not like every Finnish swimmer can do that. So I am lucky that I get to coach him. But then of course many coaches have told me that he would have been even better had I done it the traditional way. But I don't think that way, because I already tried that and it didn't work with him. So, and regarding Matti's ex-coach, it's a quite sad story. So I did have one lecture here on coach's conduct. So he's in prohibition, so he can't coach anymore. He's one of those kind of coaches. So he's kind of authoritarian, very, very loud, strict, which probably was good when Matti was 15, 16 to have this kind of coach. But in the current environment, he's not allowed to coach anymore. So that's the story there.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know that the backstory that way.
Yeah.
And then who do you coach today? Tell me about your team and your club and your city.
So I live in Pori, Björneborg, in Swedish and I guess in English. It's like a coastal city at the west coast of Finland. So you can actually just take a direct boat to Stockholm. It's going to be a few hours. It's a relatively small city. So I think in the city and in the neighboring kind of towns, there's 80,000 people living or so. My club has about 90 competitive swimmers on 5 different levels, and I obviously coach the highest level. I have Matti, then I have this 50 fly guy, or 55, 53, 100 fly guy swimming, who's on a kind of an elite European champ level. Then I have a few other adults, but those are at the national level. All of them are working and going to school, so they're training like 4 times a week or so. And then rest of my swimmers in my like the group is actually 27 swimmers altogether, but I hold 12 practices per week, and not everybody attends every practice. So I have different calendars for everybody depending whether they're able to come to morning practices or not. And for whatever reason, from the 27 swimmers I have these two adult guys. I have four teenage boys, age 16 and 15, and then rest of them are women. Uh, those couple adults who are like age 25, and rest of them are like girls age 14 to 17. So one very talented sprinter girl who's 26 high in long course 50 freestyle at age 14, sub minute in 100 freestyle, and in a program that where we don't really do any sprinting, but rest of them are kind of national. It's a fairly good team on a Finnish scale, but if you compare it to the American teams, it is not great.
And then do you travel as a team? You go to Sweden, or what does your team travel look like?
Yeah, well, with the best swimmers, we obviously go to Sweden. We go to Mare Nostrums, and if they qualify, we'll go to European champs, junior Europeans, stuff like that. But most of our traveling is to the neighboring bigger towns, so Turku, Helsinki, Tampere, Oulu. Those are usual competitions, and we hold competitions here as well. We'll actually have a international competition in 4 weeks, Finnish Grand Prix. So if anybody wants to come, you're welcome. There's money you can make actually by winning. Not to even cover your costs or your flights, but it's some kind of a bonus.
It's a bonus. Good.
Yeah.
He's a breaststroker, but you talked a little bit about freestyle. Does he ever race freestyle? And inside the breaststroke, he's 200, world success. But what about the 100 and the 50?
Yeah, we deliberately do not swim the 50 because whenever we have done that, he actually swims slower than he goes out in the 200. And somehow magically in 100 he can kind of go a bit faster. But yeah, his 100 best time is 59.99 from that year at the Europeans, and in his best 200 he opened 0089. So basically the same speed. So that 100 has been kind of a tough nut for me to open up because I haven't been able to actually improve that. Again, whether I'm sure there's some kind of a genetic thing where he's not fast, and I always tell him that if there was a 400 breaststroke, I'm pretty sure he would be uh, by far the best in the world in that because his strength is really the distance per cycle. The first 100 of his 200 is close to 3 meters per stroke distance. So that's better than anybody else in the world. So that's his strength. But it is very clear to me that again, it's more of a dream to beat Leon Marchand, but to beat him, I think he would need to swim 58 low in the 100. I'm not sure if that's possible, but of course we're going to try to get as close to that as possible. And I think this 50s on 2 set again is a small thing that we can add, and we added on the year of Paris, and I thought he improved that quite a lot. But I was really excited to see what he could do in 100, but he didn't qualify in the 100 breaststroke for the Olympics, so he couldn't swim it. Couldn't swim it there. So yeah, that's definitely his weakness, and it has always been. And by the way, 400 breaststroke last before Paris Olympics. We did one race where he swam 400 breaststroke. I believe it was 4:32 long course, just mid-season. And then 20 minutes later, he swam 200 breaststroke in 2:13. And then 20 minutes later, 100 breaststroke in 1:01.4, which is just insane. Like, but again, for him, swimming breaststroke, it's not really hard. So it's not like he's dying hard on a 200 breaststroke. Even when he's going out fast, it's more of like a technical, because he's trying to swim faster, but he just can't. It completely breaks his technique.
Wow, those are impressive
That was
performances.
impressive. Yeah.
We want to thank you for sharing, and thank you for your inspiration. I wish you the best of luck in the future with the team. Hopefully, we'll someday come to Finland and talk about the weather and the skiing and hopefully we can.
Yeah, you should come during the winter time. It's beautiful with the snow and everything. And I'm not sure where you're from, but I'm pretty sure that the weather wherever the audience is from is more to my tastings. So maybe I'll come to your country.
Oh, that'd be great. We would love to have you travel. Yes. Well, keep up the great work. Thanks so much for sharing with us. You did a fabulous job. We don't have the right words to express our gratitude.
Oh,
So
thank
it's
you.
really appreciated. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.
Have a good championship.